Hey guys, welcome back, it's Ripe again. In today's video, my homeowner association hated that I have a wheelchair in my driveway. They sued us for $200,000 claiming it makes the neighborhood ugly. Here is how we fought back. Let's dive right into the video. I know you want to hear right away about how bad the HOA is and what I did to get back at them. I promise that's coming in a moment, but really quick, I need to talk about my wife. Based on the title alone, I know that some people might think it's odd to keep a wheelchair in our driveway to begin with. Hopefully this will clear that up for you all. So my wife is physically disabled after a car accident about 5 years ago. She is bound to a wheelchair and we spent a long time trying to figure out the easiest ways to do certain things. So after a lot of trial and error, we found that it worked best for her to have two separate wheelchairs. One of them that seemed to work better inside the house. It's a little thinner because we have narrow hallways and the wheels work better on the indoor surfaces. We found when going out this chair was not the best option though. Enter chair number 2, which is a little bit larger and navigates on the more bumpy and unpredictable terrains of outdoors. With this chair, we actually found we can get back to doing outdoor activities we love with a lot less hassle. Getting the second chair in and out of the house every single time we go anywhere was found to be difficult. We did not need it inside, so we figured that we would just keep it in our driveway. It's a private driveway, so it would not be in anybody else's way. For reference, I have seen everything from children's bikes to fake cars to a boat in other people's driveways. There's no rule that only cars can go in there, and that's just an important point I want to bring up now because it will be important later. Things were going fine until one day I got a call from the HOA saying they needed to speak to me about a violation and how to resolve it. I had no idea what it was about and figured it was a simple small thing. Me, hello? HOA person, hi, we need to talk to you about a violation of HOA rules. What rule? HOA guy, we see that you have a wheelchair in your driveway and you need to remove it right away. Me, there's a rule that says no wheelchair in driveways? Driveways are for cars. That's clearly not a car, so you need to remove it. Me, tell me, are you gonna have everybody else with toys and bikes in their driveways remove them as well, or just us? Call me whatever you want, but since her accident, I've been extremely protective of her. In the last few years, I've seen a cruel side of people, and I will never let somebody treat my wife differently than anybody else just because she is now disabled. She 100% does not need me to fight her battles, but as her husband, it happens from time to time. HOA, you need to understand that thing is ugly. When people see other driveways, they get happy with thoughts of families and good times. Then they would see yours and become all depressed. You need to remove it or we will sue you. And I know that we have more money and resources to bury you in court. And that is another thing that pisses me off to no end. They assume that we don't have money because my wife is in a wheelchair. However, she is a pediatrician and I work in finance. We are well enough off to be able to fight back in court with a good lawyer. I spent the next few days fuming, but we don't give into their crappy demands and instead keep the chair right where it is. We got an outdoor camera, so if they tried to destroy it or something, we would be able to get them for that. However, that didn't end up happening, but they did take us to court for $200,000 in damages to them. We did not get to court for months later, and in the meantime they kept stacking HOA fines that I was not paying. For one, because I didn't do anything wrong and wasn't gonna pay. For second, the HOA was not allowed to fine residents for matters that had a pending case. I have no idea who had the foresight to make that rule, but good job to them. We get to court and the HOA starts giving their claim that we were in violation by intentionally making our home appear unlivable. They were trying to say that us having a wheelchair was on par with homes that had overgrown lawns and garbage everywhere. That they wanted us to pay them because the wheelchair caused many problems that they had to work overtime to deal with. Children's upset because they didn't understand what it was, homes not getting sold because nobody wanted to live in an area with disabled people. The most ableist and horrible speech, but not once citing their guidelines or showing a true violation. The judge told them that they had no right to fine or sue us. In addition to that, we were able to provide some facts that were to the contrary to what the HOA was claiming. Children are scientifically shown to have an easier time understanding and accepting disabled people than adults. Seeing them does not cause any kind of trauma. We also found that no homes had been for sale in the last 2 years within a 5-block radius of our home. Their claims of it affecting sales had zero evidence. While they could not get away with suing us, we spent months speaking with our lawyer about the fact that we had a right to sue them instead. And then our countersuit was for the exact same amount of money and based on harassment and violation of ADA law. The HOA was outraged that we were suing them back and tried to claim that we couldn't do so, that the case was closed and we couldn't reopen it just to sue them from the other side. We can, and we did, and I think they just knew that they were gonna lose and get screwed. However, the court was already unhappy with their ableist rants, and it was clear that they were biased against us. My lawyer, by trying to force them to remove the wheelchair, they are in violation of ADA law. Wife's name has the right to have a wheelchair, and there's no law stating a model or amount. Just that she has a right to medical equipment needed. That right goes above any other laws or regulations set out, especially by the HOA. It went on for longer than that, but I just felt that explained ADA law better and faster than I could have. The judge agreed that the HOA was violating my wife's rights by attempting to force her to get rid of the wheelchair, and starting a lawsuit about it despite it not being against anything except for their own biased belief system. So in the end we got the 200k, and before you start thinking that we are now rich, we aren't. Sadly, between what went to legal bills and also some medical bills we were needing to pay, we didn't get to keep a large amount of money. However, we do have a nice cushion though in case something comes up, which is always really nice to have. As for what happened to the HOA, that's a much better ending. Once other people got wind of what they had done, they were basically protested against. Nobody wanted people like that to run the neighborhood at all, but demanded that everybody involved step down. Otherwise, it wouldn't stop until the HOA was bullied into being taken apart fully. Any attempt for them to try and weasel their way out of it failed, and in the end all were forced to leave their positions. You might be wondering if the new HOA president is better when it comes to a wheelchair being in my driveway. For that answer you will have to ask her yourself, but considering that she is my wife, I think that you can correctly guess the answer to that question. And yeah, Ripe stars, that's pretty much the best ending I could have hoped for. The one being that OP's wife actually takes over the HOA. Props to OP and his badass wife. And if you still enjoy the HOA stories, I would very much appreciate if you could like the video and maybe even leave a comment, because that would help me tremendously and push the algorithm. Thank you so much. The next one is titled Homeowner Association Troubles. We installed cameras in front of our home that were looking at our vehicles. Part of the camera angles did overlook parts of two neighbors' properties, one backyard and one side yard. The cameras were battery operated and had a function where you could gray out areas that you didn't want to film. When motion occurred in the grayed out areas, the cameras would not be activated to film. The neighbor's entire properties and several bushes on our property were grayed out. We did this when installing them. One of the neighbors was a friend and had no issues with this whatsoever. We showed her the camera angle and she said she didn't care whether or not we grayed out that area, but we still left it grayed out over battery life concerns. The other neighbor's name was Karen, not really, but we all know why I chose that name. Karen was on the HOA board, and as you can imagine, we did not get along with Karen or the HOA board. We told Karen about the camera and showed her the grayed out areas at the same time that we told our friendly neighbor about it. It was simply an FYI conversation, we are not on friendly terms, not an asking permission conversation. Well, she told us to take the cameras down immediately or we would regret it. About a week after we hung the camera up, we got a notice from our HOA that we were supposedly violating the bylaws. The bylaw in question? A nuisance to your neighbors bylaw. However, there was not a specific bylaw preventing placement of cameras, so this is all they could find to try to punish us. We responded with a letter detailing how we were not violating any bylaws or laws in general and asked them to cease and desist. We all know how these stories go though. They did not cease and they did not desist. Their first response: "The HOA has the right to enforce these bylaws. Try to stop us if you think you can." These types of responses were unfortunately quite common from this board. We entered this battle with one goal in mind: to cost them as much money and time as possible. The HOA hired a lawyer specifically to fight us. To my knowledge, this has not happened to any other residents. So then in the following 4 months, we ended up costing the HOA over $4,000 in lawyer fees fighting this battle. For reference, the entire HOA income was about $25,000 per year. When it came time for our official HOA hearing over the matter, we had successfully postponed it thanks to an attorney friend 3 separate times. There were over 100 back and forth emails with the HOA attorney and ourselves. Each one of those emails was a 15-minute expense for the HOA. And I was happy to follow up a follow-up question with another follow-up question if it meant the HOA attorney was gonna keep billing them. Did I say follow-up enough times? We didn't actually want to take this battle to court, so we ended up removing the cameras the day of the hearing to prevent being fined even if the fine would not hold up in court. The HOA decided in the hearing that we were guilty, surprise surprise, of violating the bylaw. However, they could not fine us as the bylaws don't allow a fine until after a hearing has been held and the cameras were already removed. In the end, the punishment was a sternly written piece of paper on the attorney's letterhead delivered via certified mail that stated that we were not allowed to place a camera on our home that had the potential to invade a neighbor's privacy. Keep in mind, the letter specifically stated that the camera could not be placed on our home. However, we left the cameras off of the home for about 4 months until the annual HOA meeting. You should have seen the look on the HOA board's faces when I asked them to explain the $4,000 line item for attorney fees that simply stated title searches attorney fees, and the board actually tried to hide the fact that they spent $4,000 trying to fight us over a couple of cameras by putting the fees in as title searches. Needless to say, that meeting did not go well for them. About half of them lost their positions on the board. The other half, including Karen unfortunately, remained on the board. About a week after the annual meeting, we installed new cameras facing the same direction as the prior cameras, only this time we installed a post in the ground and mounted the cameras to that post. The admonishment we received after the hearing specifically stated that we were not allowed to install cameras on our home and said nothing about putting them on a post. They did send a letter to try to tell us to remove the cameras, but a sternly worded response indicating that we were prepared to fight them actually worked this time around. I guess they didn't want to spend another $4,000 fighting us. We didn't receive any follow-up responses though. And the cameras on the post are still installed to this day, over 2 years and running strong. And the next one is another HOA story, and if you have watched this far, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel for daily neighbor, HOA and other revenge stories. So this one is titled, I'm not part of the HOA. My mother-in-law is the president of her condo owners association. Back in January, she ended up in the hospital for emergency surgery and was in the ICU for a few weeks recovering. However, she is fine now. Anyway, during this period there was gonna be some sort of work done to a few of the units and the maintenance guy needed the keys from the association. They were all in my mother-in-law's condo. It happened to be on my way home from work, so I said I would get them the keys. While I am there, I discover that the tumbler in her doorknob completely comes out of the knob, generally ruining the point of having a lock. I hit the hardware store down the street, get a new lock set, swap it out and call it a day. On the next hospital visit, I give her the keys and the extra copies I had made. Good, great, grand. The next week I'm stopping by her condo to get mail and water plants. Well, the maintenance guy sees I'm there and brings back the association keys to put back in mother-in-law's safe. Commented that he tried to do it earlier, but her key did not work. I explained the situation. He's a nice guy, nods his head, but gave me a heads up that he had told the VP of the board about it and said that I should call him, so I do. The guy explains that it is association policy that the association always has a copy of the key for the units in case of emergencies, etc. I listen, explain and say that mother-in-law, the president, has all the copies, so technically the association does have a copy. Plus, it's an extenuating circumstance, VP is having none of it. I'm there a few days later to do mail and plans again when the maintenance guy knocks on the door. He's the messenger but needs to issue me a fine about $75. I thought it was a joke, but he hands over a letter saying that since I changed the lock set, I'm at fault. I took the letter, which asked for my official mailing address and SSN for their records in case of default on payment. It all ended up getting resolved, and because mother-in-law was already in a world of crap following surgery, I did not really make a stink of it, but the effing balls on the VP when he got a second of power. And the next one is titled, Bad Parenting. My youngest daughter is a senior in high school. One of her best friends, Lily, just turned 18 as the school year was starting, and her parents kicked her out of the house that same day. My daughter told me that she was sleeping on different friends' couches and talked about dropping out to work a job. My family took her in so she could finish school. I just cannot imagine a parent kicking their kid out like that. So after we did that, my daughter and Lily decided to have a community barbecue/bake sale to fundraise for some money to cover food and housing expenses. It was not anything I ever asked for, but the girls wanted to do something to contribute for groceries and bills. The girls made flyers and little promos for social media, and they were pretty straightforward about what was going on. They said, "Community barbecue and fundraiser for Lily," and a note from Lily saying, "As you may know, my parents kicked me out of the house and cut off any financial support on my 18th birthday, leaving me homeless with no money or car. And then, the Smiths gave me a home expecting nothing in return except that I stay in school and graduate. I wanted to do something to give back and pay my own way." Anyway, I shared that on social media, and so did the girls and a lot of their friends at school. The barbecue was a huge success, almost all of our neighbors came by, and many kids from my daughter's school, and a lot of our family and family friends. The girls ended up raising several $1,000s, which I ended up putting in an education fund for Lily, where I'm also putting stuff like the cash she gives me from her job for groceries and stuff like that. I'm planning on surprising her with it closer to graduation. So anyway, Lily's parents are irate. They saw that I posted the flyer on the community Facebook page and most everyone in town saw it. I got a call from her dad screaming into the phone at me for slandering their family online. Which I felt like was such BS. I told him to either buck up and act like a parent ought to, or lose my number. He started yelling on the phone again, so I hung up and blocked his number. I then got a bunch of calls from another number. It was Lily's mom, getting angry at me about how I don't know what she and her husband have been through, and it was trashy of me to be begging the whole town for money for myself and acting like it was their fault. I was like, well, it was your fault, right? And she got so angry and said that she and her husband had given their daughter everything and she was ungrateful, which I feel is BS because they ain't even giving her a roof over her head. So Reddit, am I the a-hole for letting my daughter and her friend who was kicked out at 18 host a fundraiser that was very blunt that it was to raise money after her family kicked her out? And yeah, Ripe stars, let me know what you think about this in the comments, but I would say that OP is definitely not the a-hole for doing that. Rather, I would say OP's families is full of angels for letting that girl into their family and supporting her until she can graduate. I cannot even imagine how grateful that girl must feel, and huge props to OP and his family for doing this. Either way, the comments on Reddit said, not the a-hole, they are just annoyed that they've been called out on their crappy behavior and now everyone knows about their crappy parenting. They are ashamed and angry that they've been exposed, but they are putting the blame on you instead of reflecting on their own issues. Comment number 2, not the a-hole. Imagine kicking your high schooler out of the house and then getting upset at people trying to help her out. The next one is titled, No, your son is not allowed to steal. This happened a couple days ago, so I will do my best to have the conversation exactly as it went, but some may be paraphrased. Also on mobile, so sorry about formatting. For context, I work nights in a gas station. About a week ago, a couple of kids, probably no more than 15 to 16 years old, who are semi-regulars, as in I've seen them a few times before but not often enough to know them, came in around 2 AM and pulled a runner on me with around $30 in drinks and snacks. As I am not allowed to chase shoplifters, I do what is required and leave a note for my boss so she can pull the tapes and post the pictures for us so we can tell them to get out of there if they are stupid enough to come back. You would not believe how many thieves actually are in fact stupid enough to come back. These two morons in particular, well, 2 days ago I am working my only weekly day shift and who would walk in but my pair of thieves. And who do they have with them? One of their mothers. I immediately buckle down and tell them they need to go now. The following is how the conversation went. Karen will be the mother, B1 for boy 1, B2 for boy 2, AM will be awesome manager, truly the best. Me will be me. The two thieves walk in and me, you two need to go right now. B1, for what? B2, we did not even do anything. Me, you know exactly what you did and you're banned from the store. You can leave on your own feet or leave with a police escort. You choose. They leave and go back to the car waiting for them at the pump. From the window, I can see them talking to the woman in the driver's seat, gesturing and pointing. She gets out of her car and storms into the store. Karen, why the hell did you tell my son and his friend that they cannot be here? Me, ma'am, they ran out with nearly $30 in products. We don't allow thievery and they are banned from the store. You are welcome to come and get what they need, but if they are seen on the property again, the police are going to be called. Karen, no, my son is not a thief. How dare you? Get me a manager. Me, gladly. She does not know my manager has less patience for customer crap than I do. Since the store is not very big, she has already heard this exchange from the office. I bring her out and she says exactly what I did. Karen, that's a bold-faced lie. My son is a good boy. You are targeting him and his friends for no reason. Assistant manager, you are welcome to come back and watch the tape for yourself. Karen says she will just do that. Karen, and once I have proof you are lying, I will be expecting this little slur for homosexuals to be fired. AM brings Karen into the office. I accompany them. Being the assistant, it is both part of my job and a joyful experience to watch Karen's face fall when she finds out that her good boy is a rotten thief. AM plays the tape and Karen's son and his friend, clearly identifiable as their only means of a disguise was their school track hoodies pulled up over their hair. Folks, they had their frickin' names on the back. They were wearing the hoodies as they sat in the car waiting. The Karen was simply too stunned to speak at first, but eventually remembered how to Karen and stormed out shrieking that she would be calling corporate. For what? Who knows? And with this, we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please check out my endless playlist, where you can find thousands of hours of content. In addition, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. Thank you so much in advance, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.